So I actually left out few other ways that we can do looping in JavaScript. If you remember, we've talked about for loops. We've talked about while loops. If you remember, we've talked about do while. Yeah, do while loop. We've talked about for each, and we've talked about other new methods in JavaScript like map, filter, and reduce. But there are actually two other ways that we can do looping in JavaScript, which I'm going to show you in this section. And if you remember, when we started our looping, someone asked me about, asked me about, okay, Ridwan, what is for in loop and for off loop? And I actually told the person, like, don't worry, we'll get to that, because I know we don't want to run beyond our level at that moment so that we won't get things more complicated. So let me just close all this. Okay. So today we'll be talking about these two guys. What is for in loop? What is for off loop? And if you remember, we have for loops, we have while loops, we have do while loop, for each loop, which we've actually talked about, and we've actually done some things on those. So let me just check if okay, this is back. So sorry, I'm going to copy all this and have it there. So I can do it like this. Okay. So I'm just going to comment this out. So let's say imagine we have a basket. We have a basket, and our basket is an array, and it has, some things inside. We have apples inside our basket. Let's say we are going for shopping, or maybe we have a wedding, traditional wedding, and they told us to like bring something. So let's just assume we are going for shopping. So we have oranges inside, and what else can we have? Let's say we have grapes inside of the basket. What else can we have? I think this is okay. Let's say we have bananas too. Yep. So that we can have a huge basket, because we have a large basket. So we have a basket. If we want to loop through these baskets, we know how to do that, right? We have learned about for loop, while loop, do while loop, for each. We can loop through it. So with for loop, we can do something. Let me just comment this out because of errors. So with for loop, we can do something like this, which we already know. We can say, okay, for let I equals 0, which is going to be the initial or the starting point, then I is going to be less than the length of the basket. So we can do dot length. Then for every time you increment I, then in here, you can do console.log. Let's see what we are getting for every time we increment I. Get baskets. It's not bad. Baskets. So we get baskets and I. So let's see this and let's see what we are going to get. I'm getting an error here. Why? Let I equal 0. I is less than basket dot length. I plus plus. So let's see this and let's see if we are getting any error from anywhere. Oops. Oh, yeah, I need to comment this out. Wow. Syntax error. Okay. So, yeah, you see that now. We have our apples, we have oranges, bananas, grapes. And this is how to do it with for loop. So, that is the first way. We already know how to do that. We can also do this looping through the items with for each. How do we do that? We do our array dot for each, and for each item, or let me say for each fruit. Also, I don't want to be using item, and somebody might be thinking like the only thing you can put there is item. So for each fruit, console.log fruit out for us. So if I run this now, let me just comment this out. So if I run this now, I should also get the same thing back. So I got the same thing back: apples, oranges, bananas, all those. So, and you agree with me that this for each looks much more cleaner than using the for loop. We get the same thing, but it looks much more cleaner. We can actually use map, and if I use map with this, I'll get something else. So, sorry, I'll get the same thing. So, I'm not going to show you how to do this with while loop, do while loop, because we've talked about all this before, and I don't want us to be wasting time repeating and repeating things when we need to move forward. So aside these guys, there are two other ways that looping through items can be done in JavaScript. The first one is called for off. So let's do for off as the first one. So we have for off. Let me just put this down so that we have. So the first one is for off, and the other one is for in. So which we are also going to talk about later, but let me just copy this down. So I know this might, the name for in might be kind of confusing, but if you stay with me, you know that these things are very easy and they are straightforward, and the way you are going to be reading them is just like English, because programming itself is an art. So the first one, which is the for loop, works in a way that, the first one, which is the for off, works in a way that it is very, very similar, for loop, very, very similar to for each. So it's similar to for loop and for each. And it's almost as if we are combining the two together, like combining for loop and for each together. And this is a new specification with our new JavaScript guy. So it's a new feature in JavaScript, and the syntax is just like you do something like this. This is the syntax. You write for, then the variable of then the iterable. Then you have your code block that you want to be executed. So code block to be executed. So nothing too serious. This is just the syntax. So we have, you write the for, then the variable, then off. So that is where we have the for off. Then the iterable and the code block to be executed. So let's put this into code. So we can start, let's start with the for off loop. We can say for, so inside there, what do we have inside the, okay, let's use item. Let item of basket. Should we use item? Yeah, let's use item. So that means each item inside the basket, then let's consider log this out. So let's consider log item. So if I do this now, let me just comment all this out. So if I do this now, let's run it and let's see what we are going to get. We got the same thing back. So that is not too bad, right? So we are using the for keyword, and we are just creating a variable of item, and we can give it a name or any name of whatever we want. It can be fruit. You can say for each one of baskets if you like, And we have off. So that is where the name comes from, for off. So this is just reading like English, item of baskets, like item of baskets. Don't worry. So, and this basket is iterable, like it is an array. So don't worry too much about the word iterable, iterate. Though we'll get to that, and I will explain what these words mean in JavaScript programming or in looping. So we have our array. So this is going to loop through all the items inside this array. And when I run this code, I get exactly the same thing we get with for loop with for each. So as we know in programming, there are many ways to do things. And these are just only few of those ways you can loop through an item. But I just want to mention something here, which is a key term, and I want you to let this stick with you. So what we are doing here is iterating. Let me write that out. Iterating over an array. Yeah. So the key word here is iterating. Iterating. So we are iterating over an array. And this phrase is really, really confusing at first. Probably the first time you are going to hear them. But it really means we are going through an array, one by one after the other. And iteration can be done on in JavaScript on what we call iterables. So what you are iterating over are called iterables. And we have the type of iterables we have in JavaScript. We can iterate over an array. So an array is iterable. We can iterate over a string, like going one after the other. So these iterables are something that JavaScript provided to us that says, hey, you know what? You can iterate over the things I have. So if it is an array, you are iterating over apples, oranges, grapes, bananas, all the items inside of it. So you are looping through. You are iterating over them. So this basket or this array is what iterables. What you are doing is iterating over that array. So in JavaScript, you can iterate over arrays, and we've seen this a lot of time. You can also iterate over strings. So the for of statement creates a loop iterating over iterables, which includes strings and arrays. So we can, let me just comment this out for now. I'm having a lot of comments, so I think the best thing is just to delete them so that we won't lose focus. So let's delete this too. So we can also iterate over, let's say I want to iterate over my name. Don't worry, I love myself so much. So let's say I want to iterate over my name and print out each letter in my name. So I can do let letter is good. Let letter of, what is my name? Read one. Let letter of read one. Then iterate over this and console.log each letter in read one. Console.log letter. So if I do this now and I run, let's see what we're going to get. We got RIDWAN. I can actually add some things to each one of them so that you know that they're getting printed out one after the other. So let's add, what can we add? Let's add, okay, let me add, for each letter to have B in front so that you know that it's iterating over them and adding B to each one of them. So if I run this now, we should get RB, IB, DB, WB, AB, and NB. So that is still running. Let me just comment this out. Stop. So this could be network because it is online. You see that we have RB, this, and this. So both arrays and strings are iterable or are iterables in JavaScript because we can iterate over individual items inside of them. And for of loop allows us to iterate over these iterables. But in many tutorials or in many articles, you will hear these words and you want to know why or what they mean. So that's why I'm taking my time to because if you go through some articles like that, you see them, you have to iterate over iterables and you'll be like, oh God, which one is iterable again? What I know is arrays, strings, and objects. So anything you can iterate over, we call them iterables. The action is iteration. You are iterating over them. So that is that. And let's talk about the next one, which is our guy over here. And that is for in loop. So I'm just going to, should I delete this? Let me delete this. Then I'm going to comment out this the way it is. So let's just leave it like this. Okay. So the next one we'll be talking about is for in loop. And the for in loop works with objects. As it is on, for off loop works with arrays. For in loop works with objects. So we have to understand that. So let's say let's create an object and let's see how that is done. Let's say we want to have a detailed basket of things, of fruits, and here is going to be an object. And how many apples do we have? We have apples, and we have how many? We have 5 of them. Then what else do we have? We have oranges. I think I love oranges, so there should be 50. And grapes. I don't really like them, but then we can just give it 24. So, and we have bananas. I don't know why I love bananas so much. So bananas, let's say we have like 100 of them. Yep. So now, with this detailed basket, I can use for in loop. How? I can do something like for let fruits in detailed baskets. So each fruit in detailed basket. So let's consider log that fruit out, each one of them. So if I do this now and I run this, what do we get? We got apples, oranges, grapes, bananas. So the for in loop allows us to loop over object properties. And now here is the tricky part. And you hear this word a lot too when you are discussing with probably your programming friends or you are reading articles about JavaScript programming. And you can really get confused. What we are doing here is not iteration. What we did with array is iteration, and arrays are iterables because we can iterate, over them, the items. But with objects, what we are doing here is not iteration, because iteration is something we can do with arrays and strings. But with objects in JavaScript, we are doing something called enumeration. Enumeration. Yep. So this is what we are doing. With arrays, we are doing something called iteration. And arrays and strings are what? Iterables. So that means objects are what? Enumerables. Objects are enumerables. So let me just put here. We have objects, and here we have arrays and strings. So we are doing iteration here because the properties of an object are what we call enumerables. And an object in JavaScript is enumerable if it allows us to see through the properties. And if we check, we can see through these properties here. This is what we got. So apples, oranges, grapes, bananas are enumerable. That is, we can use the for in loop to check them out. So let's do another example. So I'm just going to comment out this so that we won't have errors. Comment out this too. So let's say we have another object which is going to be old car. And here I can say the make of the car is what? Let's say it's Toyota. I love Toyota. So I can say the model could be Toyota. Okay, it is Peugeot that we have 504. I can't remember the old. Okay, let's leave Toyota. Then we can say Toyota Camry. Then the year, because it is old. So let's do year 1996. Yeah. So if I want to look through this, what can I do? I'll use for in. I will say for let's what can we say? Let's detail in car. Let's detail in old car. Sorry, that is the name. Let's detail in that object. Then console.log the key, which is going, oh sorry, the detail, which is going to be the name. And what can we, okay, let's use this. Oops, are you right, everyone? Are you hungry? So then we are using our template literal here. Then we can say old car. Then let's give it the key. Sorry, the detail. So if I run this now, let me console.log this out because we don't need it for now. So if I run this, let's see what we are going to get. You see that for each detail, console.log what's the property, sorry, the value. So enumeration is for objects. Now, what is going to happen if I switch things around? You know, I told us we use what was it called? For off with arrays, and we use for in with objects. Okay, what if we try to use for in with arrays and for off with objects? What's going to happen? So let's try that out. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this too. Let's delete this so that we have just one object and we can see our screen at once. So I'm going to uncomment this, then uncomment this too. So let me just put a comment here. So, so we can see that. So we have here, we have for off. So what if I change this to for in and I change this to for off? So let's comment this out first and let's see what we have. So if I use for in with, you know, arrays instead of for off, what's going to happen? Let's see. That works. Why? I will explain. Don't worry. So let's see if I uncomment this, but it actually works, but we got something different, right? So let's see if I uncomment this. Let's see if for off is going to work. We got error. And why is that? You know, I said that in JavaScript, we have arrays and strings that are iterable, and objects in most cases are not iterable. You see that for off doesn't work with objects because the JavaScript language only needs to provide this property called iterable for it to be, you know, to iterate over it. And this property is only given by arrays and strings. So if you see, we have type error and detail basket is not iterable. That is the error we are getting because this is not an array. But then this works. Why? It runs like, because let me just comment this out because I just want us to understand these things. And I think I've been saying this since last week. Like under the hood, arrays are objects because they have index. So it works because this array is just like index. And what we have here, like this constant basket, if you convert this to an object, this is what we are going to get. So let me just convert this to an object. We have square brackets to indicate that it's an object. Oops. So change this to square bracket too. And this is the same thing as 0. Then let's take this to another level, and this to another level, and this to another level. So under the hood, arrays are objects under the hood. So it's the same thing as this. So index of 0, index of 1, index of 2, index of 3. That is why we have this. So I hope that is clear. So we cannot think of, what's it called? Objects as iterables because objects are enumerables. So the for loop here, the for in loop here is enumerating the properties of this array, which is 0, 1, 2, 3. That is why we have this. And that is what is outputted to the console. So, I just want us to have this session because a lot of people get confused about these two, the for off and the for in. So let me just return this back to the way they are. And even though you can go a long time without using for off and for loop, I actually learned about this, but I've never used them before. I've never ever used them. So we can use something like object.keys, object.values, object.entries that we have seen before instead of this for in, for in loop. Instead of this, okay. Instead of this for in loop for objects, we can use the object.keys, object.values, object.entries. And once we use that, we can use the for each and for loops instead of for off, So it's good to know these differences because if you see them in a code base, you would want to understand what is happening so that you won't be like, oh boy, which one is this again? And also, if you've had someone say iterable, enumerable, iteration, or enumeration, you kind of have the idea of what the differences are now. So now to review, the for in loops over enumerable properties of an object. The for off loops over iterables of an array. So for off does not work with object because object is not iterable. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, but 99% of the time, you have to consider this. You use for in loop for objects and you use for off loops for arrays and strings. So both for in and for off statements iterate over, I'm using the word iterate again, something, or both for off and for in, let me say loops over something. The main difference between them is what they loop over. The for in statement iterates over the enumerable, or let me say the for in statement loops over the enumerable properties of an object in an arbitrary order. The for off statement loops over values that the iterable array or iterable strings have allowed to be, iterated over. So those are the differences of the two. And I think by now, I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that for in and for loop are different. And I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that iterables and enumerables are different. So I have a question from someone. Don't mind me. So that is that about that, and that is what we have for today. I hope we've learned one or two things today. And trust me, next week Saturday, we are going to be done with our advanced JavaScript. Then we are learning something else from JavaScript because we want to be a full stack developer, not a half-baked or half-baked developer. Because they say that I think they said half knowledge is not, or no knowledge is better than half knowledge or something like that. So hopefully by Saturday next week we'll be done with our advanced JavaScript. So I'm just trying our best so that we get to know all these things, so that we can have the confidence of calling ourselves a programmer. Because I've seen a lot of programmers on Twitter, on Facebook. They are programmers, but then if you ask them questions, they don't know anything. Same with me though, because if you ask me some questions, I'll tell you I don't know. Probably because I don't know, because I don't want to answer you, because I will just be like, why are you asking? Or probably because my knowledge, it doesn't reach that extent. So that is what we have for today. And if we have questions, we can just shoot. Your VSC layout was scary. Don't mind that. Really, really scary. Because I've actually, I've been trying